This video is for investors and traders who are serious about making money in the stock market, and for other people who are wondering when exactly is the best time to enter the stock market in 2026 and to make money. Because currently we have this pressing issue of geopolitical turmoil. US and Iran are going at it, and oil prices are skyrocketing. And that's causing a lot of investors to wonder, if oil prices are skyrocketing, when is the stock market actually going to recover? Because it seems like it's going to be a never-ending war. Because Trump has an ego, Iran is fighting for its life. Neither sides are going to let up, right? And without further ado, I'm going to tell you why now is actually the best time to buy into the stock market. So let's get right to it. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that the fear and greed index is sitting at extreme fear. Now, for people who aren't familiar with market psychology, when everyone is very afraid of buying into stocks or going into the stock market, that's exactly when you should buy. And this post is from Banana 3. He is one of the perma bulls, which is why I don't really, follow him all that often. But he does make a really good point here, which is that the McClellan oscillator, which is an indicator used in technical analysis, is very, very stretched. And we see that kind of similar to where we saw the April 2025 lows. And as you guys remember, in April of 2025 last year, the market snapped back because the all indicators were extremely oversold. The market was at extreme fear. Nobody was really buying into the stock market, and that's exactly when it snapped back. And so, if you look at the S&P 500, this is a SPY ETF, and this is on the daily time frame, and this will be on the weekly time frame. The daily time frame is getting to a point where it is hitting that 200 moving average, and that's that red line here. And we haven't seen the S&P 500 tag this 200 daily moving average since about a year ago. And this is extremely significant because we often see very strong snapbacks from the 200, and I don't think it's just gonna wick or just gonna slice right below it. I think it's possibly going to wick, and we could possibly test the November lows right around 650. But this area generally is a good time to buy into stocks. And if you look at the S&P 500 on a weekly time frame, you can see that the 50 is sitting right below it. But you can see that we don't really have to tag it. In July of 2024, when we had the yen carry trade, which caused a stock market flash crash, we didn't really tag the 50 on the weekly time frame. We rebounded. We got close to it. We rebounded right off of it, and we snapped back higher. We can see the same thing for the S&P 500. Similarly, in this case, you can see on the triple Qs, which is the Nasdaq, and represents mostly technology stocks. You can see that we didn't really have much of a correction off the highs at 637. We're sitting right around 593 or close to 600, and you can see how very little movement we had in the Nasdaq index. And I believe that because we didn't see any of the multiple bearish divergences on the weekly time frame, you can see how the MACD kind of crisscrossed back and forth for about a year before we had this massive 20% sell-off that led to the test of the 200 weekly average here. We didn't see any of that currently, and you can see that we only had one cross, and that was it. And we could possibly make a new high into the summer, which is what I'm betting on. And I can see that this is not much of a correction. So the indexes are still primed to move higher. And you can see that on the triple Qs, or on the Dow Jones Industrial Average on the weekly time frame. And this index is also not really tagging the 50. We don't really have to. And you can see that all indexes are actually tagging the 200 daily moving averages, which is that red line here. You can see that all of the indexes haven't tagged the 200 since a year ago. This is very significant. This is a moving average that won't let just any normal price action slice right through it. Okay, we're going to get a strong reaction off of this moving average. And we're seeing the same thing with the triple Qs, which is that Nasdaq ETF. We're bouncing right at the 200, and I'm betting that we can see a strong snapback rally for all three indexes going forward in the next couple of weeks to a few months out. And this is from Ask Slim. He does cycle analysis. He has a YouTube channel called Steve Miller, and this is something that kind of aligns with what I'm looking at. So you can see that we have a trough that's made in mid-March. And you can see that, the cycles are still pointing out um, up and above to coincide down into August of this year. So the cycles are still pointing upward, and this could be like either considered bullish or bearish. If it's bullish, we're at least going to get a snapback rally to test the prior highs. But if it's bullish, then we could see new all-time highs before we get that late summer sell-off later down this year. But as of now, a lot of these indexes are actually very, very oversold. A lot of these sectors are oversold as well. You can see with all the software sector and the cryptocurrency, especially with Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're actually kind of stabilizing while the stock market is selling off, which is something I want to point out later on in this video. But as for now, let's go through all the cycle analysis. You can see on the daily time frame, the cycles are pointing higher over the next couple of weeks into late March into April before we possibly get another a small correction. But you can see that we're at this point where we're testing the almost testing the previous November lows. All these indexes are hitting the 200 daily moving averages. We're at this point where it's very, very likely, and I keep stressing this because a lot of people are panicking now, and this is not the time to panic. We're at this point where we're actually going to see a strong snapback rally over the next couple of weeks. And you can see this is something I want to point out with the VIX. So previously in April of 2025, we had this strong green candle, and then we got this large red candle that we see the week after. I'm seeing that same exact setup play out in these 2 weeks that we've had here. Last week we got a strong green candle, and the previous week we had this this red candle that's showing up, and this could possibly show you that we're getting a VIX crush over the next couple of weeks. Now, some of you may wonder, like, what exactly should I buy going into the next couple of weeks if the market is going to actually rally? Now, I've pointed out in my couple of videos, in my previous videos, that the software sector is extremely oversold. The narrative there is that AI is going to disrupt software and it's going to change their business models, which is problematic for the software stocks itself and profitability in the near-term future. But I think that all those fears are overblown. If you look at ChatGPT, you look at Claude, you look at Gemini, they do use these software apps that are existing out there. And Jensen Huang has said that repeatedly, that AI is not going to replace software, it's going to use software. Why rebuild something that's already existing? And I agree with him as well. And so a lot of these stocks like Microsoft, right, which has a dominance over the enterprise space, is not going to go anywhere. Like, it's at a deep discount right now. We have Oracle, which is testing its 200 weekly moving average. We have Coinbase, which is a crypto play, which represents, whenever Bitcoin and Ethereum goes up, then Coinbase goes up as well. Coinbase is also testing its 200 weekly moving average. So, all these stocks are at deep, deep discounts. And if the market were to rally, then these stocks are going to rally as well. So hope this helps you guys position your portfolio over the next couple of weeks. And if you have any questions, I have a Discord that's open. Anyone can join. It's free to enter. I'm bringing together a community where people can ask questions, learn from each other. And I'm also going to post trade ideas in that Discord as well. So you guys are welcome to check it out. And I'll see you guys in the next update. Peace.